Let's have a look at how you can use the lead generation element for creating forms on your website. Now, these forms can be filled in by any visitor or user of your website. They can use them to subscribe to your newsletter, to sign up to your website, a webinar, and so on. And these are just several examples of the many ways in which the lead generation form might come in handy. So I have here on my screen a page open in Thrive Architect. Now what I need to do is simply look for the lead generation element within this list of the right sidebar, and once found, I'm going to drag and drop it to my canvas. Now you can browse through this list to pick a template for your lead generation element. I'm going to go with the first one from here, and that's pretty much it. The element has been added to my page. Now I can start using the options of the left sidebar to bring changes to it in order to match my needs. So first things first, you can open this field and pick a different template for your form. Keep in mind that any changes you make up to this point will be lost if you decide to change the template from here at a later stage. Next, you can edit the form elements, and I'm going to leave this part for the end of this video, and from here you can also change the color of the form. Another thing worth mentioning here is the fact that in order to work properly and get the most out of it, the lead generation element needs to be connected to a mailing service through an API connection. This is selected here by default, and this is the option that you need to use in order to connect an element to your preferred service. So simply click on Add Connection, and this will lead you to this drop-down list where you have to actually select the mailing service provider. If you have already set up the API connection in your Thrive dashboard, then the service will be listed here and you will be able to select it. However, if you haven't done that already, click here and this will take you to the Thrive dashboard where you can start setting it up. Now I have linked here a guide where you can find all the connections supported through our API module. You will find there step-by-step instructions on how to connect to the mailing service you prefer. So when the connection is successfully set up and ready to be used, it will be listed here, and from that point onwards, you can start using it across all your forms. So the API connection needs to be first set up on your website, in the API manager of your Thrive dashboard, and only after that you will be able to actually connect your forms to that service. So for this example, I'm going to be using MailChimp, and you can see that the connection is successfully added in my API manager. And this is the reason why I'm also able to select it here when setting up my form. After doing this, I can go on to the next step, which is choosing the mailing list to which all my new subscribers will be added. And what I can also do here is to choose a grouping. So these are things that you set up in your account. So in this case, in the MailChimp account. Next, you will be able to choose the type of opt-in that you would like to use. And you can select between single opt-in and double opt-in. Now shortly, the difference between these two opt-in types lays in the fact that in the double opt-in, the users will have to confirm their subscription via email. So before being added to your mailing list, the visitors will have to take this extra step and confirm that they want to be part of your mailing list. If you choose the single opt-in, then naturally everyone will be added directly to the mailing list without the need to confirm their email. Last but not least, you can use the tagging feature if you want to assign tags to the users who are signing up through this particular form. And this is a way to segment your users and send targeted emails or offers, for example, to certain categories of users. Keep in mind that here you need to first type in the tag, like so, and then hit enter to properly save it and add it to your form. Every tag you add here will appear next to the subscriber details in your MailChimp account or in the account of the mailing service you are using here. Once everything is set up, click on apply, and if at any time you want to edit the connection details, you can click on this pencil icon and do the necessary changes. Next, you can start setting up the form fields from here. So these are the fields that are visible on your form. So this one's right here. By default, the name and email will already be added to it, and the email one is a mandatory field because without this one, the visitors would not be able to sign up. But you can edit the already existing fields or remove the ones that are not mandatory from these two buttons. Now let's see how to add a new field and what options we can use here. So for example, I'm going to add a new phone number field. This is selected here by default because it's the first one in this list after the email and name fields. But of course, you can choose a different one from this list. And next, in the name field, you can add a name if you want. And this can be useful if you have multiple fields and you're sending the collected data via email. So the field name that you've set would show up in the email as opposed to something generic like maybe text1 or something like that. And this is something that's optional. It's also explained in this tooltip that appears right here, and this doesn't affect the submission of data to autoresponders. Next, you can also add a placeholder text right here, something like, let's say, type in your phone number here. And this is basically just a short description that will be added to the form, letting the user know that this type of information is required in this field. And you will be able to see it once I click on apply and save my changes. Then you can make this a required field, so the visitors will not be able to submit the form unless they added this required piece of information. And lastly, you can also show the label on top of the field if you enable this toggle. Let me just click on apply and see how this would look like. So this is the label which is shown on top of the field that I've just added, and this is also the placeholder text that I've previously added to my field, and you have seen that this is all fully customizable. Now let's go back in the edit mode and show you this last feature, which is the autofill settings. So here you can use the autofill options such as query strings, post variables, cookie data, and so on to automatically fill the fields with already known data. I linked this separate article here which goes into more detail about how to set this up. Now, after you have finished setting up the form fields, you can proceed to the next step, which is deciding what happens after someone submits the form. So to do that, you will have to click here, and these are the two possible options you can choose from. So the two actions that would take place after the successful submission. So first, you can choose to redirect the user or the visitor to a custom URL, which you can then paste over here, or you can simply look up an already existing page from your website. You just have to type in the name right here and the page will show up. Once found, select it from the list, and as simple as that, your page has been added. And there's one more thing you can do here, and that is to use the send form values to thank you page option. And this comes in handy if, for example, here in the target URL, you have linked an already created thank you page where you want to send the users who will complete your form. And if this option is active, then it will send the values completed by the users in the form, for example, the name and email address, to the personalized thank you page as URL query strings variables. Keep in mind though that you will have to use the dynamic text feature on the thank you page, because this feature will allow you to display the collected values on that page. And you can read all about setting this up in the how to article of the lead generation element. Now, there was another option to use here in the after successful submission field, and that was the show success notification one. And naturally, this one will just display a success notification to anyone who successfully submits the form. If you want, you can also customize the message from here, and by clicking on this eye icon, you can preview the success message. Lastly, there's a set of advanced options that I will briefly explain. So if you open this drop-down list, you can see that there are still several features and options you can use here. The first one is the asset delivery one, which comes in handy if you want to automatically send downloadable files to your new leads directly from your WordPress site. So after you enable this, you will have to select an asset group that you've previously set up in your Thrive dashboard. In the next field, you are able to find a unique form identifier that you can copy and then use with other Thrive Suite products. So if you're trying, for example, to trigger a Thrive Ultimatum campaign when a lead generation form is submitted, you can simply paste this code in the trigger field and the system will recognize it. Now, if you wish to get ahead of spam signups, you can add the CAPTCHA system to your lead generation element. And in order to do this, you must first have an API connection set up with Google reCAPTCHA. And you can see that as soon as you enable this toggle, this checkbox will appear in your form. And lastly, you can set up different types of error messages that might show up if something is not working properly. So you can simply replace the already existing text with your own. And once done, of course, click on save. Now let's go back to the connection options a little bit and see the other one available here, which is the HTML code. So besides connecting the lead generation element to a service through an API connection, you also have the option of doing an HTML connection. And you will see that after you select the HTML code from here, you will be prompted with this empty field where you can insert the code. Now, the main difference between these two connections is that the HTML one will support more customized fields. So you can use the form exactly as you have set it up in your autoresponder, for example. Furthermore, HTML allows you to connect to services that do not integrate at the moment with Thrive Themes products. Here's an example of an educational registration form that can be used here. So I've just pasted the code right there, click on generate form, and this new template has been loaded on my page. And here as well, I can start customizing the fields as I best see fit. Now let me just switch back to the API connection and show you one more thing you can do here, and that is the edit form elements option. So once you click this, you will notice that you can start customizing almost all components that make up this form. You can simply hover over different parts of it and then click on it, and the options will appear in the left sidebar. So you can change, for example, the way the sign up button looks like. You can change the template button, the colors, you can add secondary button text, icons, and so on. And besides this, you can also change the actual text that appears on the button itself. You can change the typography, the formatting, and so on. Once you're done with customizing this, click on this button from here, and this will take you back to the main options. And finally, feel free to use more general options from here if you want to customize your element even more. And that's about it. This is how you can set up the lead generation element. After you're done with it, don't forget to click on this button to make sure everything has been saved. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this video useful.